Welcome to the Bates Bobcast segment of It's a Great Day to Be a Bobcat here on our live stream. My name is Aaron Morris, and we're going to have three guests here this evening, starting with first-year women's tennis player Ally Friedman, who's joining us right now from apparently a beautiful sunny day here at Bates. And Ally, I'm curious, we haven't had you on the Bobcast before, so I wanted to know about your background. How did you first get into tennis? What developed your passion for the sport?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. And I started playing tennis sort of with my friend when I was pretty young, and sports has always been super important part of my life and my family. We're always very active, outdoorsy, doing everything like that. And so when I was like 5 years old, I went to sports camp and was sort of introduced to tennis. And then after that, I played Little League. And then when I was around 9, that's when my serious tennis training sort of really began, and I developed my passion for it, and that's when I started playing tournaments and everything. And I actually have never really had an off season to this day, so I've just been training and training forever. And then I got a scholarship to go to Tennis Academy, which is also Ross School in East Hampton, which is an international boarding school. And from there, I was training with them in their academy. And yeah, ever since, my dream has been to play college tennis. I remember Ross School, our tennis academy, took a trip to watch the Columbia women's tennis team play because one of my actually two of my coaches played for Columbia. And so when I was in 7th grade, like literally it was my first day there, and we took a trip, and I immediately knew that like my dream was to play college tennis. So whenever I was frustrated throughout the sport, because there's definitely been many frustrating times, as there is in many sports. And so I just always came back to that sort of dream and wanting to play college tennis.
Excellent. And then how did Bates first get on your radar?
Yeah, so I actually, my close family friend, they went to Bates and they loved it. And my sister actually, when she was a dancer and a gymnast, and she did a dance camp in the summer at Bates. And she's 2 years older than me. So that sort of, it popped up on my radar from then. And then during my showcases, I started interacting with Coach. And since then, it was just, he was amazing. And I think we really clicked, and his coaching technique and style really spoke to me. And yeah, ever since then, I continued talking to him and building that relationship. And then I came to visit, and he watched me at a showcase. And yeah, it all sort of really worked out.
Excellent. We recently had, of course, the breaking news that we're going to get some spring sports in here. Were you surprised by that? How thrilled are you by that? Able to get some competition in this spring?
I was so surprised and so excited. Like Coach texted us and said, "Okay, guys, like we're having a meeting in like 40 minutes or something," and we popped on the call, and literally so excited. I immediately like called my parents at home. I was like, "Oh my God." I was with the other freshmen at the time actually, and we literally were sitting in a circle like on FaceTime with our parents, just being like so excited. Because it's just competition, and that's how you really get the team together. And again, like my dream has been to play college sports. So the fact that we're actually competing and working towards something is just, I'm like, it's still sinking in. I'm so excited. It's just still sinking in. Yeah.
And the team was able to practice together in the fall. What was that like, adjusting to college tennis in a practice setting with some of the older players, some more experienced players, perhaps?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's very different from my sort of junior's career and training, because I almost always only played with boys, because at my tennis academy, it was 90% guys. So I would be training with them, and I never really had that sort of team feeling. And that's sort of what I've been searching for, because, I played Little League when I was like 12, and like that was the last time I've been on a team. And tennis is very lonely because it's an individual sport. So being able to have a team and being able to come in and immediately have that support system was so helpful coming in, especially with COVID college, because that's like, freshman year is already scary, and then coming in with COVID adds a whole nother scary sort of factor to it. So having those people who you can count on right away, and the upperclassmen to like talk to and you can look up to, and it was just great. It was amazing.
Awesome. And then 2018, when you were still in high school, you founded an organization called The Ball. Explain to us what The Ball is. Give us some background for those who don't know.
Yeah, sure. So the BALL stands for Tennis Health Empowerment Building Attitudes Lifetime Lessons. And so again, like I've always been playing tennis and I've been coaching for years. And tennis has really made me the person I am today. I've learned many life skills and just empowerment through tennis and sports itself. And I always knew that I wanted to, work with kids and sort of teach them how sports can really change their lives. And, it's not just about coaching the technique, but it's going beyond that. And it wasn't until I went to Zimbabwe in 10th grade, so I was 16, and it was 2018, as we were talking about, and I volunteered for this organization called Hoops for Hope. And they are an organization that works with kids and teaches them life skills through basketball, song, and dance. And honestly, right the first day when I stepped off the bus and there were 500 kids running around this really, worn out basketball court. It was insanely hot because again, it was Zimbabwe, and there were so many smiles on their faces and the passion that the coaches had. It really made me realize, like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, these kids are being impacted and they are seeing the little things in life and they are really just purely happy. And the coaches, and through their passion and through the belief that they have, that's how they're being impacted and that's how they're reaching the kids. And that's when I realized that I wanted to go more in depth with sports. And yes, coaching is great and teaching kids how to play a sport is great, but there's so much more to it. And just the life skills that I've really just sort of learned so much about myself just through playing sports. And so that's when I came back, it was around February of 10th grade. And that summer I developed just, a free tennis clinic. And it worked out well. I got kids from the community, but then I realized that I want to go even more in depth and I really want to focus on it. So that's when in 11th grade, very beginning of the year, September, I developed the BALL. And I reached out to different members of the community, pediatricians, guidance counselors, therapists, gym teachers, everyone around, different healthcare workers, asking if they had suggestions for girls between the ages of 7 and 12 who could really benefit from a program that teaches empowerment through sports. And I recognize that, not everyone is going to want to play college tennis, right? Not everyone is going to want to continue to train and work and only play tennis. And that's why, yes, this is a tennis program, but my goal for the future is, for the BALL is just tennis because that is my expertise. And the BALL tennis is just the vehicle I'm using to teach these girls empowerment. So I ended up coaching 12 girls the first year, and I had another 12 on the waiting list. And I brought in different coaches and different things like that, someone who could teach nutrition and someone who could teach self-defense, and sort of just give these girls different tastes of activities that they might not already have the chance to try. Because again, it's not about tennis, it's just about empowerment. And I would do different drills and different progressions through tennis, but again, just working towards giving them the idea that it's important to live a healthy life and it's fun and just different things like that. So then that first year was very successful, but it wasn't that structured. And I went back, and before my senior year, I decided that I want to go even more in depth with it and I want to make a more structured approach. And that's when I developed my curriculum and I began to do my own publicity for the program and really begin to make it official and a real thing. And so that's when I developed my 12-week curriculum, and I have the progressions, and each week it's a very holistic approach that I'm going for throughout my program. And each practice we have mindfulness and sort of bringing your body together and realizing the importance of, to be a healthy person, you're both healthy mentally and also physically, and sort of understanding that and allowing yourself to feel those things and allowing yourself to understand what's going through your head and accepting it. And the reason why I sort of began with the ages of 7 and 12 is because 7 is sort of that time when kids start to, they're still happy with the small things in life, like everything is great. And as they move up that timeline, that's where really they begin to doubt themselves and they begin to think. And coming with someone who hasn't always been the most confident and everything like that. Tennis has helped me really find myself and be who I am. And that's sort of what I was reaching and trying to help these girls do. So when a girl, I would do different sort of acts of leadership without them even knowing, like different testing things. So when one girl would miss a practice, the next week I would have another girl stand up and explain. And it would just be really amazing to see them in the first week be completely silent, and as they move on, sort of build into themselves and start to get comfortable and get emails from their parents saying that they are, practicing these things at home or talking about healthy eating and just really trying those things that they might not already have the chance to try.
That's outstanding. And then last year in June of 2020, through this work, you were the winner of the Billie Jean King Youth Leadership Award. How did that happen? Like, how did you find out about that? And you've been working with Billie Jean King now because of this. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, so that was pretty amazing. So the founder of Hoops for Hope, Mark Crandall, because again, I went back to Zimbabwe last year, and he's a friend of my family, and that organization is just my roots. I love them so much. So he emailed me and he said, look at this, like you should apply for this grant and sort of award type thing, as well as iTry, which is another girls empowerment organization in my home. And the founder there also reached out to me and said, this would be great for you, you should apply. So I sat down, immediately intimidated because it was, about 10 750 word essays and just so much stuff, and just, the name Billie Jean King and being a female tennis player, immediately that caught my eye and I was just, wow. And so, of course I began writing them and the grants, and this was, so previously I did some grant applications and stuff like that for the organization. But this one was pretty intense and asking so many questions, and I worked so hard on that application, but I still did not think there was any chance I was going to receive this award. And then, yeah, as time went on, I was waiting and waiting, and then I found out, I think a few days after graduation, actually, that I received it and was a nominee, and it was incredible. And because of COVID, obviously, I wasn't able to go to the ESPYs and actually receive the award, because that's where I was supposed to with the other award winners, which was unfortunate, but still it was just amazing to watch it. And then that part was great and everything, but now the resources and the connections I have and the relationships I've made with the different people I've been working with. I have a mentor from Beyond Sport, and from then I now have another mentor from Coaches Across Continents, and my FaceTimes, Zoom calls with Billie Jean King, and all of meeting all these incredible people through this is still just completely, I'm just still in awe from all of that. It's so incredible.
Outstanding. Well, Ally Friedman, she's only a first year, folks. Look all she's doing already on the Bates women's tennis team. Looking forward to the spring coming up. Thank you so much for joining us on the Bobcast here live on a great day. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Kovacs hits it forward again. Skimmed header. It's trapped and a goal! In the 89th minute, the Bates Bobcats have rescued at least a point, perhaps. Bates won, Bowdoin won, as the stands are shaking at Garcelon. Jacob Iwowo is the goal scorer.
Go Beal, dribbles, and Iwowo knocks it away. Iwowo on the break. Iwowo throws it down. Jacob Iwowo, the steal and the slam, and the crowd loves it. Well, Jacob Iwowo with us here on the special live version of the Bates Bobcast here on Great Day to Be a Bobcat. And he's got his beautiful hometown of London, England, behind him here. And Jacob, growing up in London, I imagine you played soccer at a young age, football as they call it over there. But tell me how you first got started in the sport.
Yeah, so for football, that's just kind of what everyone's doing. I think I probably started playing football, I'd want to say I was like 3 years old. Started a little kind of local indoors club. I I have kind of some vivid memories from playing there. But yeah, no, it's just kind of what everybody did. So I was just kind of following suit at the time.
And then one day you picked up a basketball and thought, I'm pretty good at this too. Tell me that story.
Yeah. So I was in the fifth grade actually. And there was an after school club basketball. I did all the sports after school clubs. But the reason why specifically I did the basketball one is because we were playing in a PE class basketball. And I remember I dribbled the ball through my legs. And to me, like I didn't know anything about basketball. So I thought I'd really done something there. So I was just thinking to myself that, okay, if I can do this, there's a future for me in the sport, definitely. So I got to find a way to go. So it started off with the after school club. And then I was online searching for club teams because I had to kind of, perfect this clear talent that I had since I could dribble the ball through my legs, which nobody else could do in my mind, I thought.
Excellent. And you knew from a pretty young age, I think last time we talked, you said about 14 years old, you knew you wanted to come study in the United States. Why was that?
I think that for me, I started playing basketball at about 11 years old, and it was a pretty quick kind of progression in the UK. I was fortunate enough where the journey I went down, I was at a club. They put me forward to play for the London team. And then, once I was on the London team, I went to a tournament, and next thing you know, I was on the England team, and I was like, oh, holy crap. So for me, once those, that started happening and things started, progressing so quickly, I've always kind of loved American culture. I thought America was super cool. So I don't know, come 14, I was on the computer, I was emailing coaches. Like I just wanted to get out there so bad. I just had my mind set on it kind of.
Great. And you came out here for high school, and then what eventually led you to become a Bobcat?
So for me, I remember that I was looking between Amherst and Bates. But the main thing for me was kind of when I got a chance to get on campus, and really and truly was actually kind of meeting the coaches. I came down, had a meeting with the soccer coaches, and there was actually the coach at the time, he's no longer here, the assistant coach, but him and Tyler I just thought were great dudes. And I also had a professor, or a coach and professor at my high school at the time, who also went to Bates, and he kind of told me about his experience there. So to me, it just seemed like a cool fit.
And am I right that initially you weren't sure if you were going to play two sports in college? How did you finally make the decision you wanted to do that?
Yeah, so for me, it was a matter of I didn't know kind of which sport I wanted to play in college. My basketball journey had a lot of different ups and downs and twists and turns and whatnot. And I remember coming out of high school, I kind of wasn't sure whether, I wanted to kind of pursue the football, pursue the basketball. But kind of when it came down to the fact that I'd have opportunity to do both, at a school that has two pretty strong teams in both sports, I thought that would be definitely something that would be cool, because it wasn't like I was kind of eager to stop playing one or the other, definitely.
Right. We touched on the fact that, when you picked up a basketball, you drove between your legs, thought that was cool. When was the first dunk you threw down? Do you remember your first dunk?
Yeah, I do. Funnily enough, I was 14 or 15, but my first dunk was I always struggled jumping with the ball in my hands. So my first dunk, I actually threw it off the backboard and caught it and threw it in with two hands. That was my first ever time dunking. So yeah, it was, I don't know. I was very shocked, and so was everybody around me.
Awesome. Now, so your first year at Bates, you have a prominent role in the soccer team, but it didn't give you much time to obviously train with the basketball team. So what was that transition like going from fall to winter? Because late in the basketball season, you really kind of came into your own, it seemed like, but it looked like it maybe took some time for you to kind of get in the flow. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that for me, it was kind of finding my kind of identity on the basketball team and kind of finding where I fit in. I think that basketball, more than football, I think kind of has, I'd say, a bigger mental element to it. I think that kind of soccer, maybe it's because I grew up playing soccer and, it's just so natural to me. But, no matter what, no matter where I go, I feel like I kind of know where to be and how to fit into a soccer game. I feel like basketball, things kind of come with confidence and whatnot. So for me, it was a thing where, I kind of figured out halfway through the season that my in was going to be playing defense. That was kind of my in on the team. I would come in, play good defense, and then, I remember my first real bucket, I scored like a spin move or something, and I was like, holy crap. But with those little things, you kind of get your feet underneath you, the confidence starts coming. Next thing you know, you're making threes, you're making moves to the hoop. So I definitely think that for me, it was just kind of that transition. But now that I've kind of found my identity and stuff, I do feel like going forward, I'll be able to kind of be a lot more consistent on a consistent basis.
Great. You mentioned your basketball career had like a lot of twists and turns leading up to college. Can you take us through maybe some highs and some lows? What were some challenges you had?
Yeah. So for me, as I said, the progression was really quick. Most people don't really know this, but I was the captain I ended up being the captain of the English national basketball team. And I think probably the biggest high for me, the coolest thing I've done for basketball was when I got invited to the Jordan Brand Classic camp, which is like the camp for the top 40 players in Europe. Super crazy event. They like came to my house, picked me up, took me to the airport, flew me out to Croatia. We was in a gym with all the top players, nuts. But when I kind of came over for the high school, I remember that for my family, obviously I was the first kid, I'm the firstborn, and this whole idea of going to America, a 14-year-old telling you, I want to go do X, Y, Z for parents is like, I don't know about all that. So I ended up going to obviously a super high academic prep school in the Brook School. But in terms of recruitment and the fact that we were such a good team and stuff, it just didn't really fit me basketball wise. So probably coming over, I had real dreams of playing in the NBA. Some of the dudes that I played against back in the day, that's kind of where they're at the moment. So some of the stuff in terms of recruitment and stuff like that, that was a low. But at the end of the day, and what I kind of tell a lot of kids right now is that the cool thing about the US and the college scene is that the D1 thing is cool, but if you're doing your thing in school as well, the NESCAC is for the schools where at the end of the day, if you end up there, you're going to be pretty good and pretty well off at the end of the day. So that's kind of, my takeaway from the journey as a whole.
Yeah. And the NESCAC, I mean, what was your impression, the level of competition, in your rookie season? It seemed like, the NESCAC, we know, is pretty high. What was your thoughts compared to maybe England and stuff?
There's some dudes.
Yeah.
There's some dudes. There was some, I think the main player I'd say that I was super impressed by was, I don't know his name, the Bowden kid who, obviously I was kind of the defensive player on the team. I would always kind of step up, try and guard the best player. And even I think there's a picture of me. I get scored on a layup and my fingers are interlocked with the dude who scored at me. And I remember I was just thinking, how the hell did he score that? So, there's definitely some really good teams. Colby run a super good offense. It's actually bigger, stronger, faster than you'd expect from a typical Division III basketball league. So you can definitely kind of see across all sports really why the NESCAC is so strong.
Excellent. And then obviously this year, a difficult year all around for everyone in college sports. How did you handle things, both soccer and basketball wise, practicing in kind of a limited capacity, if you will, I guess, right?
Yeah. So obviously, for the fall when I was on campus, soccer was strange. It was weird. Especially I feel like, basketball, you can get some shots up, you can, do things, but we were playing soccer games where you could play, but you can't tackle and you had to stay. And it was just super weird. But I will say is that, at the start, it was a bit rough, but, once everybody got a hang of it, I think the coach did a really good job of sticking with it and, trying their best to get sessions that were meaningful. And I think that, after a few weeks of everyone getting used to it, I think that we made strides during the year. It wasn't fun at the time. We were doing a lot of fitness. But I think as a team, we kind of, we pushed ourselves, we worked hard. And I definitely think that, during this COVID period, we can't say that we didn't put our best foot forward and try our best to make as many steps forward as we can during that kind of environment.
And it sounds like there's some possibilities for some maybe 1 or 2 matches or games this spring. I mean, are you excited about that possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I heard that the team are going to be playing, and that's so cool. I'm so happy. Obviously, I'm in London right now, but for the fact that the team are going to be able to get some games, and for the seniors to be able to play, I mean, that's so cool. It makes me so happy. So I'm definitely going to be tuned in from across the pond 100%.
Oh, so you actually are in London. That's not just virtual. You actually are in London. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm actually this is actually the real background.
Okay. Well, so are you studying remotely right now then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that been going from an academic perspective?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of even when I was on campus, the 2 classes that I was taking was remote. So, it's not ideal. I think that, being in class every day, just definitely makes it, easier, and you kind of get a better vibe. And, at the end of the day, when you're sitting in a classroom, there's definitely less distraction than when you're at home. But at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. And I think that I've been doing pretty well academically during the period. So, I've been definitely trying my best.
Excellent. So hopefully returning this fall, I assume?
Yeah.
Great. So how excited are you to see everyone in person again? And hopefully everything will be cleared up, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, the opportunity to play, the opportunity to see everybody again will be super cool. I think that in both sports we were set for a big season. So, I think that getting the opportunity to get out there, playing again, get some competition, will be fun. So I'm looking forward to it, excited.
All right, before we go, I got to ask you about, we played a clip before this interview of your goal against Bowdoin in soccer as time was winding down at Garcelon Field in front of that crowd. Is that one of your high points at Bates so far?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. It was super cool. Yeah, I don't know, when it happened, I think that especially in soccer, I've kind of had a history at the prep school level of just happening to be there when it's time to score a big goal. I think that it was kind of a similar feeling to in high school. I was fortunate enough in the final minutes in like the national final, the ball ended up falling on my foot. I ended up scoring a goal. So, I just remember when the ball went in the air, the kid Miles, who was playing up front, he does the same thing 10 times out of 10. When the ball's up in the air, he's a big, strong kid. So he moves defenders back, and he always tries to bring it down on his chest. So I just kind of saw into the future and said, okay, the ball is going to land right there. So when it does, I'm going to try my best. And it just happened to work out pretty well. So definitely a cool moment for sure.
Outstanding. Well, he's Jacob Iwowo joining us from across the pond there in London here on the live version of the Bates Bobcast. I don't even know what time it is there, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And we'll have another interview coming up in just one moment. Thanks again, Jacob.
Thank you.
This kid came in, he's flying around, he's laying out, he's making every catch, he's hitting bombs, doubles, stealing bags. I mean, like, talk about a dream come true.
And the payoff pitch. Ripped. Deep center. Beal on his horse. Dives and makes a spectacular catch. Oh, what a play by Christian Beal out there in deep left center field. How about that? What a play by Beal. My goodness.
Wrapping up our special live edition of the Bates Bobcast here on Great Day to Be a Bobcat. Aaron Morse with you, joined now by Christian Beal, the Bates baseball team. And Christian, we're in a celebratory mood right now, right? Because it was just announced that the NESCAC will allow their schools to play spring sports, and Bates is going to make an attempt to play spring sports. And you being on the baseball team after what happened last year, how pumped are you right now?
I'm pumped beyond measure. I was worried about it, throughout the whole entire year, really, where we're going to get to play. Coach Martin did a great job of keeping our spirits up, and, always being, always remind us to keep working. Because, if we get ready to play, I want us to have the best team, that we can have. And I think that 1, we're ready for it. 2, I know the seniors and I are beyond pumped to put on the jersey for one last ride here. and not only play for us, but also play for the seniors of last year and handle business.
Certainly. Now, for those who don't know, you have a very interesting background in terms of how you ended up coming to Bates. Take us through that story. You started off at a different school, right?
Yeah. I started out my college career at Miami of Ohio. I spent my freshman year there. Like any freshman, you go in thinking you're going to spend 4 years at that school, but things just didn't work out in terms of baseball. And also, I wanted to be in more of a diverse environment academically and in a kind of a different environment that kind of challenged me a little bit more. And Bates was that environment for me. But I had ties to Bates a little bit before then too. I played in Europe on a baseball team, and Coach Martin was the assistant coach for that. So Coach Martin kind of really bonded with me during that trip. We spent 3 weeks abroad playing the game that we both love. We kind of definitely drew a very, very strong connection during that process. And he told me, this is funny, he told me during the summer, he said, if anything didn't work out in Ohio, I'd give him a call. And, here you are 3 years later, I'm about to graduate from Bates College. So it's pretty unique, and definitely I'm very blessed for him.
Certainly. And tell me a little bit about how you first developed your passion for the sport. Because one thing we know about you, you're a passionate player on the field.
Yeah, I think it definitely goes to definitely my family, but also the community I grew up in. I think that, growing up, there was always a strong community effort to support baseball in my community. And I think that this is funny, going back when I was a little kid, there was always a parade in like the beginning of April for the season. And that was always something I looked forward to. And I just loved how my community rallied behind the sport of baseball. And I kind of just love the community aspect of it. And I fell in love with that. And that, that carried throughout high school. The same people, guided me when I was 3 years old, all the way up to I was in high school. And I just loved, being out there and seeing them smile when you make a diving catch and things like that. So definitely the community aspect of the sport, but also it being a predominantly white sport. I wanted to make a difference as a Black man in that sport. And I think that it challenged me both on and off the field to be the best. But also in Chicago is a very tight-knit community when it comes to Black ball players. And we kind of gravitated towards that because we really wanted to put an emphasis on making the sport more diverse too.
Yeah, you're from the Chicagoland area. I was about to mention that. Obviously, everyone's massively into sports there. So many professional sports teams in Chicago. Tell me about that environment growing up.
It's awesome. I think sports definitely is our major there in the city. We love our sports. We love our Bears. And, you got to pick which team you root for when it comes to baseball. I grew up on the South Side, so I've always been a White Sox fan. And I think that my grandpa always had season tickets growing up. So I was always in the ballpark or around it. And I really, really gravitated towards that atmosphere. And again, the community aspect of it, South Side baseball, stadium's packed, rooting for your White Sox. And again, it's something that I always aim to and strive to play in. And I play in the biggest stage I could play in.
So 2005 must have been a special year, huh, as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember much. I was only 6. I definitely do remember them winning. I remember my mom being very happy and my grandpa, but it's a long time ago. I would like to see him win this year so I can remember it a little bit more.
It wasn't that long time ago, man.
I just made you feel old. I'm sorry, but
no worries. Who were some of your idols growing up in terms of baseball players you emulated?
I think definitely Derek Jeter, just because of the way he carried himself on and off the field, in terms of just being a leader, being calm, collective. I actually had the chance when I was a little kid. Our seats were 4 rows back on deck circle, and they came into town and he gave me a knuckle touch. And I think that kind of solidified him as being my favorite player of all time for sure. But just, growing up, I always want to do the Jeter play. And that kind of got me into always trying to make the most difficult plays possible look easy, because he made it look easy. So on and off the field, that was my guy. Always will be. I think when I got older, Tim Anderson became a staple in our community, definitely because he does a lot in the community. He's always accessible for the Black ball players if you ever want to hit. So I think definitely when I got in high school, Tim Anderson was definitely a leader for me and a guy I looked up to.
And then coming to Bates, I mean, your first year looking back when you were a sophomore, transferring from Miami, what was the adjustment like for you coming here? You didn't get to play necessarily with Miami, but you had seen that environment. What was it like in the NESCAC to adjust, sort of?
I think that the NESCAC's great baseball, and I think it's tough day in and day out. The adjustment was smooth because of, again, the coaching staff and the players here. I really can't, put emphasis or put into words what Coach Deschler and Coach Martin mean to me. and what they've done for me in my baseball career. They've completely transformed my baseball career, and they put me, in a great position to carry on and keep on playing and accomplish all my dreams. So, in terms of just the transition from Miami to Bates, it was simple, smooth, and they really just let me go out and play the game I love. And that, that's the thing that a lot of coaches, I want a lot of coaches to understand, is that when you really trust your players and you just let them go out and play the game, I think that you'll see good results. And Coach Martin just let me go out and play, roam around, dive around, steal bases, hit home runs, do anything I could, to just play the game I love. So I'll always credit Coach Martin for that.
And now we touched on this at the beginning of the interview, but you will get some games in this year, it sounds like. And so it sounds like you have to be masked while you're out there playing. I mean, what adjustments are you thinking about for this year, your senior year?
The mask is simple. I think that if anything, I would always wear the mask if we could play the game. So I definitely do want my teammates around to wear that mask. I always remind myself to wear the mask because I know that I can sometimes slip. But I think that, it's going to be like any other, game. I feel like I played summer ball in the middle of the pandemic in the summer. And I think that it's honestly, everyone can't wait to get out there. So it's definitely energy when you're out there because we haven't played in so long. So I think it's important for us to hone that energy down and be focused, every pitch, because there's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of nerves. But I'm always going to remind my guys, especially when we get out there, to pitch by pitch, and just play the game that we all love to play, make it simple. But I think it's going to be fun, a lot of energy, and I really want Bates to rally behind us and support us during this.
Now, for those who don't know, Christian was you were first team all NESCAC 2019, and now you're going to be using your extra year of eligibility. I don't know how many years you have left. You have a lot, but at least one extra year of eligibility. Richmond Division I program where Nolan Collins, a former Bobcat, is pitching now. How excited for you for that opportunity coming up?
I'm beyond excited. I mean, I'm talking to that coaching staff day in and day out. I'm watching all their games. I'm watching Nolan. I talk to Nolan day in and day out, and just checking on him, how he's doing. But it's a dream come true. I mean, I think that, when I got here, I had a year of eligibility anyway. So I think that was always in the back of my mind. I wanted to play that another year and go to grad school, and for it to come true, it's a dream come true. And I can't I can't thank Coach Martin enough for making sure that, I had the ability to go play, put me in a great spot to go play in a graduate school. Because, it wouldn't be possible without him and all his connections and everything he did. But like I said, I can't wait to get out there and do the same thing I did for Bates, for Richmond, which is, be a very exciting player to watch, but also just do anything I can to help my team win.
Has no one given you any insights about Division I ball compared to NESCAC?
Yeah. I think that I think the practice aspect is definitely gonna be different. In terms of just it's more individualized, the outfielders are together, infielders are together, you practice at different times. But, and then you travel obviously a lot more and, it's definitely more professional atmosphere in terms of just, I know the coach over there, Coach Whitson's very professional and very major league-like. So he said, so I'm very excited for it. But like I said, it's baseball. I'm just looking to go out there and do what I do.
Certainly. And you mentioned Coach Martin, the impact he's had. Do you elaborate a little bit more about what he's meant to you in terms of being, a mentor and also helping you out with those connections you mentioned?
Man, I think that, Coach Martin is definitely a mentor. He's my leader. Anything baseball wise, I go to him in terms of just summer ball, where I'm going to play, this and that. He's always got my back, and he always works day in and day out to make sure that not just me, but all his players are okay, and in the right spot. But I think that when I came to Bates, I wanted to play with someone who believed in me more than I even believed in myself, because baseball is a very up and down game. Some days you feel like on top of the world, other days you feel like you're, not as good. And I think that Coach Martin always reminded me that, I was one of the best players ever, in the conference, and he always believed in me nonstop. And I think that, that's extremely important. But he's just been a mentor. He came up in the summer in the middle of the pandemic to watch, me and Drew play in, Newport. He's always in my corner. And definitely a guy I'm going to miss playing for as time goes on. But I know he'll be right there watching and always communicating with me day in and day out. So, he knows how much he means to me and my family. And, I can't thank Bates enough for allowing me to be here and be a part of it the last 3 years. That's why I'm so excited to, strap it on and wear number 2 for the next couple of games and try to win an NESCAC title for sure.
Sounds like a plan. Christian Beal, thank you so much for joining us here on the special live version of the Bobcast here on Great Day to be a Bobcat. Don't forget, folks, you can support our student athletes like Christian, like Ally, like Jacob, who we've heard from right there on your screen. We got a donor goal for today. We got Clayton Spencer and Sarah Pearson up next, the president and vice president for advancement, respectively, here on the live stream. Christian, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron, and go Bobcats.